Okay, let's start talking about the hexagram ritual, the banishing ritual of the hexagram. Students who do the curriculum work in the Kabbalah Magick book uh, perform the lesser banishing ritual of the pentagram every day, at least once per day, and eventually they perform the banishing ritual of the hexagram once per day. Okay, I think in the Zalatar grade, that's when it gets introduced. Okay. What is the hexagram? Why is it important? As you will recall from the last video, it is the two forces of the divine which have become separated from each other, okay, in order to produce manifestation, right? And so in the pentagram ritual, the hexagram is introduced uh, towards the end, I guess, or in the middle, so that it is present. And so it sets the stage for the invocation of the planets, let's say, okay, after the elements have been cleared aside, more or less, okay? And so after the lesser banishing ritual of the pentagram, normally we perform the banishing ritual of the hexagram, which then banishes the influences of the planets, the astrological planets. And as you can see, each point of the hexagram corresponds to one of the 7 planets, except for the center. You'll notice that the center has no point. Okay. Now 7 planets. If you do modern astrology, it's like, wait a minute, there's more planets than that, astrologically speaking. We are using the Aristotelian system of the planets back when people did astrology and they could not see any of the planets with the naked eye past Saturn. Okay, and Saturn is going to be really important for this. When we draw the hexagram for the banishing ritual of the hexagram, uh, we use the Saturn banishing hexagram. Okay, the directions for how to do this are in the book, or you can easily look it up online. Okay, I'm sure this is a well-known or well-published ritual. Uh, the the secrets behind it are not so easy to understand, which we'll try to go into here. Okay, you are banishing Saturn because Saturn is the mother of all the other planets. Like I said, it is the outermost planet. Okay, and inward from there we have Jupiter and then Mars. So Saturn's out here, then there's Jupiter, then Mars, then the Sun, then Venus, then Mercury, and then finally the Moon, and then we're down to where the Earth is. Okay, so the the spheres of the planets are like enveloping influences. So when you are doing these pentagram rituals and hexagram rituals, you are participating or you are creating the ancient cosmos around yourself, the way that the Magi of old would used to see the universe. It's an important kind of cosmos. It's a psychological kind of cosmos. Okay, it does have some correspondence with reality. It's not pure fantasy. Okay, um, it does it literally match the solar system? No, it does not. Of course not. Okay, so in this cosmology that you're building around yourself, Earth is in the center, and Saturn is on the outer edge. Okay, it's supposedly Saturn is as far as you can go with your initiation. Okay, so if you are to initiate yourself, you first rise up into the sphere of the moon. Okay, then you rise up into the sphere of Mercury, then Venus, then the Sun, then Mars, and eventually all the way out to Saturn, which supposedly most people cannot initiate themselves past. You cannot get past Saturn. Saturn represents death. Of course, that's not true. Okay, so the idea that you cannot get past Saturn is an illusion, but we can talk about that in a later video. All right, so now we are ready to work with the planetary energies. Okay, supposedly when you work with the planetary energies, they get to know you and you get to know them. And that plugs you into this larger universe of these concentric spheres of condensing power. Outside, beyond Saturn, there is the sphere of the zodiac, the wheel of the zodiac. And beyond the wheel of the zodiac, supposedly, there is the divine. And the way this is portrayed is that the divine is pure radiance, all encompassing everything, infinite, etc. But it radiates light inward towards the earth. And as that light radiates inward, it filters down through all of the spheres, through the zodiac, through the sphere of Saturn, through the sphere of Jupiter, onward and onward down, eventually through the sphere of the moon, and then it creates the earth. Okay, and the earth is really little more than vibration, complex patterns of vibration, all supposedly created by this descending influence that's filtering through all the various planetary spheres. Okay, this is the kind of universe you are starting to create. It gels very well with astrology. In fact, it is the cosmology of astrology. So if you practice astrology already, that's more power to you, because you're basically now taking advantage of astrology not only as a predictive art, but as a creative art. When you initiate yourself into these planetary spheres, supposedly now you're able to participate in the creation of the universe along with those planetary deities or planetary powers. Okay, that's supposedly what happens. Will it happen for you? I don't know. One way to look at this is that the magician is standing on top of a truncated pyramid. That's a pyramid with the top chopped off, and the pyramid represents the four elements. So the four faces of the pyramid that are facing outward, they represent earth, air, fire, water. Okay, uh, this is a very profound symbol because it indicates that the four elements are merely aspects, which really means faces, facets of the substance that the universe is actually made of. The elements are not the substance itself. They are the aspects or faces of that substance, the um, the prima materia or the quintessence. Okay, uh, uh, the, the the elements are the outward appearance of the quintessence. Okay, so inside the pyramid, the substance of the pyramid itself, that is the quintessence. Okay, also known as the philosopher's stone. Okay, there's a lot to talk about in regard to the difference between prima materia, quintessence, and philosopher's stone. I don't have time for that here. The topmost facet, the facet that's facing upward, that you're supposedly standing on top of to do your ritual, uh, that could correspond then to the quintessence or the prima materia, and that you could see that surface as in vibration. So the planetary powers are descending down upon the power of the divine is filtering through the planetary powers, descending down upon that platform, causing it to vibrate, fluctuate, and create everything in manifestation. Everything in your dream world, everything in your waking world is produced by this vibration of the interlocking triangles of the hexagram. I hope I'm explaining that well. Very mysterious, isn't it? It's kind of convoluted symbolism, worth exploring because the way the psyche works is not necessarily straightforward. It's convoluted. It's like a maze. So the main part, or the well, the most confusing part of the hexagram ritual doesn't involve hexagrams. It is the analysis of the key word. Okay, the analysis of the key word has a lot of um, secret symbols tied into it. It pulls a lot of concepts together into words of power. Okay. The principle behind this is not as complicated as you think it is. Think about the business world where we use abbreviations, acronyms, okay, for various procedures that we use or strategies that we employ in the business world, and we come up with acronyms to represent them. Or like in the academic world, we come up with STEM for all of the sciences, essentially science, technology, engineering, mathematics, STEM. So that's an acronym that ties all those disciplines together into a little word of power. So this analysis of the keyword portion of the ritual kind of does that. The principle behind it is simple, okay? The principle behind the analysis of the keyword is the principle behind most magic, and that is the aspects call forth the essence. Okay, the essence of anything that you happen to be looking at is hidden, and whatever you happen to be looking at is the outward manifestation of that hidden substance. Okay, if you look at the truncated pyramid, okay, the only visible part of the pyramid, symbolically speaking, are the four outward faces of it, and that's solid, liquid, gas, and plasma. The four phases of matter, or the four elements. Okay, these are the only things we can experience in regard to matter, and the actual quintessence that they are all made of is invisible. Okay. However, supposedly, if you put these things in balance, if air, earth, air, fire, water are all in balance, these will then call forth the quintessence into manifestation. Is that possible? So what happens is you infer the quintessence. Okay, now it's never going to be called forth into manifestation. The fact that it's not in manifestation is a bit of an illusion anyway. Okay, but the idea is that if you take the aspects of something and you lay them out in some kind of aesthetic way, artistic way, they will call forth their essence. Which is not a complicated thing, really, if you think about it. Artists do it all the time. If you're watching a movie, they're using aspects of something to call forth the spirit of whatever that thing is. Okay, the director does that. The stage designers do that. The cinematographer does that. The writers do that. They're using aspects of a mood, let's say, to call forth that mood. Okay, and the mood is not quite accurate either, because mood is an aspect of something much deeper. Anyway, so let's go into some of these aspects then that you are working with in the analysis of the keyword. First, start by saying INRI. It's already an acronym, and in the Christian mythology, it stands for Jesus of Nazareth, King of the Jews, I believe. Yes. I in Latin, I in Latin was also J, so I for Jesus, okay, and of course I for the Jews apparently. So and then N I guess is for Nazareth, I'm assuming, and then R is for Regis, which is king. So Jesus of Nazareth, King of the Jews. Naturally, this plugs into the myth of the crucifixion, and you are essentially visualizing yourself sacrificed or crucified. In the Golden Dawn, we transliterate the INRI to Yud, Nun, Resh, and Yud. And we have, it goes this way. It proceeds from right to left. Yud, Nun, Resh, Yud, because Hebrew goes from right to left. The two Yuds, Yud corresponds to Virgo. Every Hebrew letter in the Hebrew alphabet corresponds to an astrological power, the signs of the zodiac, or the elements, or the planets. Okay, so Yod, the little tiny flame there, corresponds to Virgo, which is a gentle mother-like influence, or sometimes an overbearing mother-type influence. And then Nun corresponds to Scorpio, which is darkness and death and putrefaction. That's you rotting in the grave. Then we have Resh, which is the symbol of rebirth, which corresponds to the sun, to the solar body, the sun. And then, of course, there's another Yod there, which is Virgo. And what we have then is, oh, try to do this. Okay, but it's hard for me to, because it's like a mirror image. So the two Yods there are like a gate. This is the gate of the feminine, which between the two gates, the opening gates of the feminine, let's say, we have both of these forces. We have the, oops, we have the Nun, which is death, and then we have the Resh, which is rebirth. So the Nun is going back into the mother, into the universe, disappearing, dying, and then Resh is coming back out of the mother, or coming back out of the universe and being born from the universe. Okay. So one of the secrets of the mysteries is that we did not really come into this universe from some other plane. We came out of this universe. Okay, that's well in the goddess mysteries. That's one of the reversals of a lot of what happens in the Abrahamic faiths. Sort of a heretical way of looking at spirituality. We came out of the earth. We didn't come into this world from some other alien place. All right, that's Yud Nun Resh Yud. Isis. So Virgo corresponds to Isis, which is the mighty mother. Uh, Nun corresponds to Scorpio, which is Apophis. Okay, and then Sol in this, the sun in this ritual corresponds to Osiris. Okay, Osiris is many things. He's a moon god. He's a sun god. He's essentially a middle pillar god. Okay, if you study Kabbalah, you know what the middle pillar is. I'm not going to go into that. Okay, but he's both solar and lunar. In this ritual, he's solar because he's pretty much represents immortality and rebirth. So the sun aspect is emphasized here. Isis is Virgo, Apophis is Scorpio, and Osiris is Sol, or the sun. And then these are paired up with L, V, and X in an almost cheerleader type way. Give me an L, give me a V, give me an X. What does it spell? I just ruined it, didn't I? As you can see, though, in a pep rally, it's very magical, isn't it? They're using these magical techniques to call forth a mood. Aspect call forth essence. LVX is the Latin word for light, lux. The V in Latin is a U, doubles as a U, okay? So LVX, lux. And so the Isis, Apophis, and Osiris apparently are aspects of light, okay? And their participation in the death and resurrection of Osiris shows them as aspects of the light of Osiris. They are essential, including the destruction and the death. This is a necessary part of the light. Interesting. We could go into the second law of thermodynamics to talk about that, couldn't we? Anyway. Then we have another word of power, Isis, Apophis, and Osiris, Iao, which is an ancient Gnostic word for God. Okay, and the Golden Dawn, it can correspond to the heart center. What you're essentially doing in this analysis of the keyword is calling upon the Osiris current, because it's pretty much the passion of Osiris, the death, and the floundering in the underworld, and then the resurrection of Osiris back into this world in the form of Horus, his son, or Raharakti. Okay, so Isis, Apophis, Osiris. And you can see this as a vibration of the two triangles, between the two triangles of the hexagram, if you like. And this is the essence of light. This is the Golden Dawn magic of light. Okay, the Osiris current. The Osiris current rises up through the earth, from the underworld, through nature, into you. Okay, that's sort of heretical, because normally in the Abrahamic faiths, the light of the divine comes down from the sky, comes down to the earth, and then the earth is all corrupt and needs to be fixed, right? Well, in the mysteries, the light of the divine rises up through Mother Earth. She conveys it forth, and this is shown forth in the Christian mysteries as well. Mary, Mother of God, very sacred as the gateway into this universe of the Christ force. She is also the gateway back out of it. Okay, very sexy imagery there in a disturbing way, maybe. All right, formulation of the hexagrams. Finally, we get to the hexagrams. And with the hexagrams, uh, as a matter of convenience, we don't use the Star of David. And as we've already shown, the Star of David doesn't have an angle in the center where the sun normally sits. Okay, uh, so we use the universal hexagram. The only reason for that, we just basically bring the student into the use of the universal hexagram right away. Okay, that way it becomes habituated. Is this symbol, does it have a lot of archetypal power like the normal hexagram does? No, not really, but it's a matter of convenience to draw it this way. It does plug into that power, okay? And it is developing its own associations as people use it more and more, okay? We could go into that. What is an archetype, actually, right? Um, the Golden Dawn originally didn't use this hexagram. They used the regular hexagram. But then for invoking and banishing the sun, it was a really clumsy technique for doing that, and your arm gets really tired tracing all of the different hexagrams. Okay, so uh, this symbol makes it a lot easier, and if you perform it daily, your psyche or the psyche of the universe will get comfortable with you using it and will say, okay, this is the language you're using to speak to me. I'm happy to work with that. Okay, kind of how magic works. Okay. Yes, we want to use archetypal symbols that have a long history. That's plugs into a lot of power there. Okay. But we can also habituate into using symbols, and eventually the universe will adjust itself to us and learn to speak our language. Okay. Hmm. And of course, we include the symbol of Saturn in there. Okay. And the colors that we use um, initially just use white. Okay, and then you have the symbol of Saturn, which could also be seen in white. But eventually, you'll begin to use the planetary colors for the color scheme of the Golden Dawn, and the hexagram banishing Saturn would be black, or like a luminous, radiating black fire. Hmm. And the symbol of Saturn itself would be indigo, sort of a very dark, luminous blue. Okay. Uh, But in the meantime, like when we start this, we just use white, but eventually, like in the Orcus grade, then you can start using the black and the indigo colors. And yeah, so we can see the reason, just to make it clear, the reason we use the universal hexagram, the sun here in this symbol up above does not have angles. So eventually, when you want to invoke and banish the sun, which is really for the portal grade, okay, um, then you have the universal hexagram established in your sphere of sensation. It's one of the tools that you use, and it's one of the tools that the universe is comfortable using in regard to you. All right. So I hope that clarifies some things about the hexagram ritual. The most important thing that we've talked about here, and I know it's very basic, but it's that the principle of the aspects of something properly arranged will call forth its essence. The aspects of something properly arranged will call forth its essence. This is and of course, in the Golden Dawn, they go take this even further, and they'll say, by names and images are all powers awakened and reawakened. Uh, and this is why in magic we surround ourselves with various objects that have a certain aesthetic appeal. The aesthetic appeal of these various objects, they comprise the aspects of some deeper force that we are calling forth. Okay, very basic principle of art, actually. So that's why magic is both an art and a science. All right, until next time.